Cunningham on the vice chair. Our fearless leader, Sam Kramer, is stuck in the Iberian Peninsula or on his way from there. And our other colleague, Ed Krug, is out for the evening, so we have a quorum to conduct business. I just want to make a couple of reminders. We have a public hearing at 7, but if anybody is here to listen to or speak about the Springs Fireplace Road car wash, that has been adjourned. That's been taken off the agenda at the request of the applicant, and so we're not going to be talking about that tonight. With respect to the public hearing, anybody may be heard. If you just try to confine your remarks to roughly 3 minutes, that'll keep it short and sweet. If you really need extra time, we'll go through the list of people who want to speak, and then we'll come back around to anyone that feels they need to make some other remark. So with that said, we're going to start with our work session, and the first item up is the Verizon at Montauk Community Church personal wireless service facility.
The only outstanding issue at the time of the last review was ARB comments. You have received them. They say that they have no objections to the revised design. So we prepared an EAF Part 2 and 3. A negative declaration is recommended. You can waive the public hearing on this application, so you should decide whether or not to do so. So you should determine if the height is acceptable, and provided no changes are required, then you should make a secret declaration and decide whether or not you want a public hearing.
Do you have any elevation?
Yeah.
Okay.
See her too.
Oh, yes. She's very, oh my gosh, what a night to drive here. Isn't she from Rockefeller Center or something?
So this will show you, this is the existing, this is the tower where they want to add the enclosure on the top,
Right.
and that's proposed, so they'd be mirroring the aesthetic. The ARB is okay with it. I think they just wanted some details on what the materials were going to be and, you know, what the texture of it would be, to keep it consistent with the existing
Right.
brick tower.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Eric? Is the applicant here? Would you like to speak? Please come, and just make sure to identify yourself for the, thank you. Oh. Come to the mic if you wouldn't mind, please.
My appearance for the record is India DeCarmine of Amato Law Group, 666 Old Country Road, Garden City.
Thank you.
11530.
Welcome. Bad night for that drive. I'm sorry about that.
It wasn't so bad.
Oh, good.
I'm not sure, I brought it with me an example. I have a prepared statement, but I also wanted, while you're sitting here.
A sample.
This is a sample of what will be screening, the side part of the screening, which mimics the stonework on the Montauk Community Church will look like. I can't say that this will be the exact materials, because this is a mock-up. But I will say that as you can see in the simulation and in anything else that we've submitted, it was designed to mimic the church pretty exactly, and it just raises a small amount above the existing bell tower.
Okay.
Madam Vice Chair, so I don't know if you need to know where the property is. You know, I assume that you're knowing.
Yeah, I think, we've been through the rudiments here, but, say whatever you feel you need to say.
Sure.
I don't want you to know we need to go on and on about stuff we already know, I guess.
Sure. So it's located on the south side of Montauk Highway between South Essex to the west and Etna Place, and it currently has a Montauk Community Church on it, clergy residence and associated structures. It's about 1.6 acres. We've now incorporated the architectural design features into the design of the screening as the board had wanted, and as you heard, the Architectural Review Board has passed on it at this point, and it fits the current aesthetic of the property. What I wanted to talk about mainly was our hearing waiver request, which of course is in your power to grant. We respectfully request such a waiver pursuant to Town Code Section 255-6-45, because our application fully complies with the section. Specifically, as indicated in the wireless site plan initial evaluation issued by the board on March 20th in 2019, the proposed small cell facility qualifies as a Tier 2 personal wireless service facility application under your code section 255-2-80B, as it meets all location standards, all design standards, and all safety standards set forth in the town code. Also, as demonstrated in the zoning drawings which have been submitted, in the full environmental assessment form which was submitted, and in the visibility assessment and photo sims which were submitted, the proposed facility would be located entirely on the rooftop of the existing building, the church bell tower, and completely concealed within the proposed RF transparent screening. In compliance with Section 2556-45A through F, the proposed facility will not require a variance from the town code, will not require approval from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services as noted in the environmental assessment form submitted, will not be more than 500 square feet in area as shown on sheet 2 of the construction drawings, or the zoning drawings rather, submitted, will not require additional parking, will not create a visual detriment to the surrounding properties or to the general public as shown on the photo simulations and noted by the Architectural Review Board, and will not cause drainage problems, impede traffic circulation, or interfere with the overall planning of the site as shown on the zoning drawings, the environmental assessment form, and the photo sims. Moreover, the RF report submitted in connection with the application demonstrates a need for the proposed small cell facility as well as an improved wireless communication service in the area immediately surrounding the property. Given this, it appears that the small cell facility has not caused a significant public controversy and instead will serve the public interest, have a positive effect on the health, safety, and general welfare of this community. And the grant of the requested waiver would also be in accordance with the federal law, since this application is subject to the applicable timeframes established by the Federal Communications Commission in the declaratory ruling regarding Section 332C7B of the Communications Act of 1934.
Okay, then. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the
Yeah,
applicant?
what is the material of the additional,
I don't know that I'm qualified to tell you much more than that it's RF transparent screening. And I'm not trying to keep anything from you, but I'm not sure of the exact material. It's a light material that radio frequencies can pass through, but it will completely screen the antennas which will be behind it.
I mean, you don't know what it's made of? Is it made out of particle board or is it stone or?
It would not, I would venture to guess, although I shouldn't be guessing, that it's not made out of stone. It's made out of something light but durable. And I apologize, I do not know precisely what it is made of.
I was just wondering how durable it is.
I believe it's very durable in that we have similar screening in place in many places, and it doesn't need to be serviced that often or at all that I know.
Yeah, it's probably some kind of fiberglass or something, would be my guess, but, you know, that's for the ARB too, anyway, so. Anybody else have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I have some. I'm wondering if you explored co-locating on the Montauk Tower building.
We did, and we were told by the, one moment, I have a small section here. You do have an affidavit, I believe, in the submissions from Robert Monteleone of Verizon Wireless that is going to back up what I'm telling you now, so you don't just have to. So it's noted that as an initial matter, co-location is technically discouraged under the Town Code 2552-46B. Nonetheless, discouraged it is in your code. Counterintuitively, it's discouraged, but nonetheless, we did explore it. So you have an alternate sites affidavit submitted, and in the exhibits there too, our real estate consultant, and his name is Robert Monteleone, approached the property owner of the Montauk Tower in 2015 to inquire as to its interest in leasing space to co-locate its antennas at the property. The property owner then declined to lease the space to Verizon. And more recently, in the beginning of 2019, he again contacted the property owner about leasing space late last year. And the property owner again declined to lease space to Verizon. And I believe in the alternate sites affidavit, there's actually an email exchange.
Because there are towers on the tower, but
Understood,
they
but
must be a competitor, right?
They're definitely a competitor. I don't know if that had anything,
Right.
the property owner, but they're definitely in the alternate sites affidavit. I probably have it
Okay.
in my book, but you'll see there's an email exchange with the property owner where they say, no, we're not going to. lease anything to you, or we're not interested. They may refer it to their own board and say that their board's not interested.
And you need 6 feet? Did you establish you need 6 feet? You can't do 4 feet? Or
6 feet is pretty much, I believe, the minimum amount. You know, the small cell antennas themselves have a certain height to them, and they need to be set above. I mean, I'm not an expert. Within our expert reports, this is addressed, but 6 feet would be what we would need.
you're not sure,
I'm sure that in our reports that this is addressed, that we're at the minimum height where we need to address the need that we have.
Okay.
I don't want to represent that I'm an RF engineer.
The other question I have is, did you and the ARB look at also mirroring those windows on the third?
I was at the ARB meeting, and that was raised but dismissed. One of the things would be, if you had windows, you would, if they were true windows, you'd be able to see the antennas through them. It never really, what I can say is it was raised and it seemed to have been dismissed before I addressed it. I can't address it as an expert, but any sort of window there would show the antennas through it.
And I mean, it looks like that second set of windows might be faux windows.
I couldn't speak to that.
So that would be a question. I think, and I'll just say, I think we need to go to public hearing on this and see what the Montauk community thinks.
Okay. Well, it's Sharon's application.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that, and we'll let Sharon talk
Okay.
if everybody has any more. We're good, right? Do you have any questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay, great. So Sharon, you want to?
Yep. Yeah, this was started before, I joined the board, so I just went back and looked at the file and saw, Joe Potter's letter to the ARB, requesting this look, to make it look like the tower, the materials. And it looks like they've sort of complied with that. And so, I think I agree with Randy. I think probably a public hearing, we sort of tend to go on that side of things and be more cautious. This is right in the middle of town. It's a church that we all recognize in Montauk, so I don't know if anybody will notice if this thing will go up, but I think a public hearing is probably necessary.
Okay, Lou?
Yeah, I don't have much to say. As far as the public hearing, like Sharon said, I always like to err in favor of having one. I'm not sure what kind of response we'll get, but I think, I'd vote for having a public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah, the first time this application came before us, I think I and the rest of the board had some concerns because it's such a noticeable, visible site. I do think most of those concerns are aesthetic, and so if you get ARB approval, I think that's probably the most important place to hash out those aesthetic concerns. So that being said, I sort of thought this had gone away and not come back, and was
Yeah, I did.
was not disappointed in that. But the material matching and all of that, they're just it seems like it'd be difficult to make it match the church and age the same way. But again, I think that largely the aesthetic concerns are ARB matters. So not much else to add besides that, except for I do agree with the rest of the board that because it's so visible and because, of the initial take we had on it, that it should go to public hearing, unless our council advises us that we shouldn't do that for any time period that you brought up, but nothing wrong with going to public hearing?
I don't think so. If you can decide tonight that you're going to
Yeah.
set the public hearing and if we can notice it.
Yeah, I think,
I think the federal.
Before the end of the calendar year.
I think,
If I could speak to that, but when you're done, I'm so sorry.
I was going to say the concerns are the shot clock concerns. Is that what you were raising?
No, actually, but
Okay.
please, I don't want to step on anybody, I just want to be heard on it.
Well, let's let Ann finish.
well, look, I'm one who often thinks that, even though Generally, we like public hearings. If there's not much of a change, I'm okay with not having one. I don't think that's the case here. I think this is a semi-big deal in terms of where it's located, the structure it's located on, and I would want to make sure that we hear all concerns before we move towards approval or final decision.
Randy, do you have anything more you'd like to say?
I agree.
Well, I agree with the board in general. Let's just hear from the applicant, and then we'll go through the questions. Did you want to make another comment?
Yes, as to the public hearing, I would still contend you don't need to have one, but I understand there will be one. We would ask, because we would need to clear with our experts and also submit expert reports, that the public hearing not be before the end of the year, and in fact, wouldn't be until February.
I'm sure we can.
As much as we want to move forward, things like reports and getting our experts.
I understand completely.
in a row.
Generally, we're trying to move these along more
Understood.
quickly than more slowly, so not in 2019. I'm just going to write that down.
And probably not until February would be,
Okay.
with the holidays.
All right, well, you can coordinate with the planning department. Eric will, be the one that will draw up the notice, and, okay. All right. Okay, so let's just go through the questions then. Is the height of the facility acceptable to the board? If people would say yes or no, that would be helpful. Thank you.
It's not, I'll have to be the,
The naysayer?
yeah, this application started before I got here, and I'm holding off until I hear from the Montauk community how they feel about it.
Okay. So we're still majority, but, and Sharon, do you want to make a motion to Dr. Negative? Yeah.
Yeah, I make a motion to declare this a negative declaration.
Is there a second?
And here, I just want to say again, here we have this whole list of, is this acceptable to the, does it impact, this is technically a historic building.
It's technically not, I think.
Oh,
It's not, I don't think.
no, isn't the,
Old and historic, but it's not a land.
Well, it's not
no,
designated.
but I think if it's over 50 years old, it's considered a historic.
I mean colloquially,
Well,
the definition
well,
of historic is
because it's over 50 years old, it would be eligible to be designated in part of our historic landmark status processes. I think that's what Randy means, even though it presently does not have a historic designation as per town code. Well, do you want to review the environmental assessment form, Randy, and see if these impacts are to your liking?
Just see if-
The answers are to your liking, because
You want to just go through it quickly?
yeah, okay. And so the short environmental assessment form for the benefit of the public is how we determine whether a project has an environmental impact that's large, small, or medium. And there are 11 questions here that have been prepared by the planning department and would recommend a negative declaration under SECRA, but we'll just go through the questions and see how everybody feels about this. Number one, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? So we have small, no or small impact, or moderate to large impact. Is everybody okay with the way that question is answered on the form?
Yes.
Okay.
So small.
Number two, will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of the land? Are we satisfied with that answer?
Yes.
Okay. Will the proposed action impair the quality or, character or quality of the existing community? What about that answer?
I would say it's a moderate impact.
Okay. Anybody else agree with that?
I don't think it has to be changed.
I think it's small.
Lou?
I think the answer is fine as is.
Okay. All right, so Randy,
Outvoted.
that's okay. It's happened to me. Number four, will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? It's not even applicable. Five, will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will this proposed action impact existing A, public or private water supplies, or B, public or private wastewater treatment utilities, if that's a non-applicable one also. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Randy, I'm guessing you might like a moderate impact on that. Okay, anybody else agree with that? Number 8, changing number 8 from no to moderate? No?
No.
Okay. Number 9, will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources? Example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? That's irrelevant. And will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage? Also not applicable. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? I think that's a no, too. So we have, even if we had 2 yeses here, I think we would still adopt a neg deck, right? I mean, we don't, even with 2, even if we changed yours, changes, Randy, to the 2 that you wanted.
It doesn't matter if you check numerous boxes from moderate to large impact, as long as, if you feel that the mitigation that they proposed, the measures to mitigate
Right.
those impacts is sufficient.
Right.
To not want to be
Right. Okay, well then, so can we go back to our negative declaration
So
vote?
I've made the,
You made the motion,
Motion.
It's anybody, you seconded it? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I'll abstain.
Okay, 1 abstention. So we have 4 yeses and 1 abstention for the record. Is the application complete and will a public hearing be required? I think those are 2 questions. Is the application complete?
yes.
I would say yes. And will the public hearing be required? I think we all want a
Yes.
public hearing, right? Okay. So I think you have your answer. And thank you. And good luck getting home.
Thank you.
All right, where are we on the time? All right, we have 8 minutes. Do we have an 8-minute one here, Eric?
I don't know.
Okay.
Not really anything terribly quick. The cart barn is probably quicker than Quail Hill because it's a wrap-up memo.
Cart barn is a wrap-up.
Not cart barn, but barn.
The barn is a
It
wrap-up.
was a previous application in South Fork Country Club.
Yeah, okay.
But that's an initial evaluation.
Yeah, all right, let's just stick with the agenda. I think
Okay.
I'm making it too complicated.
Okay, so a public hearing, Quail Hill Farm. Public hearing is held September.
Oh, yes, Ann is recused on this application. Sorry, Ann, I should have given you warning.
2, 3, 4.
Yeah, we got it.
Public hearing was held September 11th. Attorney for the applicants and one for the neighbors spoke, as well as 6 members of the public, and 1 letter was received. Potential conflicts with the covenants and the agricultural easement provisions were raised. The board should verify with council that that's not an issue. They note that no portion of the property shall be used for leaching or sewage disposal field, and they're proposing a sanitary system. Part 3 of the easement does allow for agricultural buildings. This issue did arise at the previous application, which was ultimately approved by the board after discussions with council. They also said the property across Deep Lane would be better suited for the barn. The board doesn't get to decide which property they located on. You need to judge the merits of this application. They spoke about public safety across Deep Lane. There's no record of accidents in this area in the file. There was also a question about the use of the easement, which you might want to discuss with the applicant, specifically using it for non-agricultural purposes. I don't believe that's their intention in this site plan, but you may want to discuss that with them, although the public record is closed. So the board should read the public's comments and determine if the issues have been addressed. The town engineer has signed off on this, as has the fire marshal. So the board should discuss the public comments and determine if the application is ready for approval.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Is the applicant here? Do you have any comments? Jeffrey, would you like to make a comment? No? Okay, all right, great. Yeah, okay,
Scott's here.
okay. So Sharon, this is yours, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the only issue in my mind was just, whether the covenants and restrictions, didn't allow for a sanitary system to be installed in this area. So I did speak to Jameson when I came in, and I think the consensus is that this was approved, previously in a different location. It's the same easement, and in the easement there is an allowance for agricultural buildings to be put on their land, and if they're used for agricultural purposes, this is not like, they're not putting up a house with a big septic system, they're just putting in a small toilet for an office, and that is allowed under this easement. So that, to me, that was like the only comment that was a question mark. We can't really, entertain the building being put anywhere else. And then the safety issue, I think, has sort of been debunked as well. So, so if, council, do you want to reiterate that and assure us that?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that additionally to this board having already approved this proposed building with the included sanitary on the site, so the relevant easements applied at that time too, that this board and the town routinely interpret easement language and this specific easement language in this exact way, that if there is an agricultural structure that's allowed, that if there is sanitary that is used solely to service that agricultural structure, that it's been interpreted that's permitted. What is not permitted would be if there was sanitary also on the property that was servicing any other building or, residential building or a neighboring building or having an improved, an improved adjacent lot where they would locate the sanitary there, that, all of those would be unacceptable, but that this specific proposal is acceptable. And I clarified it with, and double-checked with John, too, since he was involved in many of these discussions prior to me coming in. So that's our position.
Okay, and that's my recollection too, is that as long as the sanitary is for the agricultural building, it's considered part of the use, so. Okay, are you?
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
think other than that, I would say that it's complete.
Okay, great. Randy, do you have anything to add? How about you, Lou?
No, I agree with Sharon's remarks. I think it's ready for approval.
Okay, well, I agree with the board. My only caveat would be to make sure that any special events that might happen there meet special event permit requirements. But beyond that, I think it's ready for approval. So, thank you. We're good to go. Okay.
So, resolution next meeting, is that what we would expect on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That was fast. That was a 5-minute one.
I thought it would be longer.
Okay, in the South Fork. Country Club Barn. That's going to take more than 3 minutes. Do you want to get us started on this, and then I'll...
Sure.
Yeah.
This is an application to build a new 2,400 square foot barn with 2 restrooms. Also propose their lighting, landscaping, grass parking, a new sanitary system and dry well. It's to house maintenance equipment and replace a previous 2,800 square foot barn. The parcel's roughly 44 acres, zoned A5 residence, and situated on Old Stone Highway. It's in the Ag Overlay District, Pine Barrens, and South Fork Special Groundwater Protection Area, and this is a Type 2 action under SECRA. It appears to meet all the dimensional regulations. They provided 16 grass parking spaces, which appear to replace those which were required by a previous site plan. Here is, I can zoom out too, but this is a blow-up of the building. They're not proposing any pavers, so basically this is an asphalt parking lot. There's a wood gate here, and then you're out onto the lawn here. So that it's just pure grass parking spaces. You should discuss whether or not you want pavers. There are none now. They're proposing a row of privet along the northern side of the building to screen it from the course. There's already an existing privet along the south side here that's to remain. It's 12 feet tall, it's quite thick. But you should decide whether or not you feel more screening is needed. Abraham's Landing Road is down here. It really wouldn't be very visible. Actually, should probably zoom out and show you this. So with these 2 existing buildings here and that privet hedge, it's probably pretty well screened. The lighting appears okay. It's roughly the equivalent of 60-watt incandescent bulb over the doorways. They're proposing a sanitary system and have shown a low nitrogen system. The town engineer is requesting extra information on drainage and existing and proposed grades. The board should discuss whether or not any additional information is needed at this time, and if the application is complete and ready to be scheduled for a public hearing. I did write that before the town engineer requested that additional information, so you should probably get that before you deem it complete. I don't think that there's going to be any issue with grading in that area. It's lawn right now. It's part of the golf course. But he does want to verify what that is, where the water's going to run off. And they have proposed a dry well, but he just wants to make sure that it's of adequate capacity. So other than that, you might want to discuss the nature of use of the barn with the applicants. The floor plan I have here, and it suggests just a barn for storing lawnmowers and things of that sort, with 2 public restrooms for the golfers.
Okay, great, thanks. Eric, is the applicant here? Would the applicant like to address the board? Hi. Would you come to the mic and just state your name, please?
Good evening. Tony Panza, AIA architect for South Fork Country Club.
Welcome.
Thank you. The use of the barn, as Eric had mentioned, is to store equipment that's used for maintaining the golf course, and the 2 bathrooms for use for the guests on the course. As you mentioned, replacing a previous barn that was located just up in this area over here. So by relocating it, let's call it, that one's been demoed, into this new spot, it's closer to where the existing facility is. There's the amount of equipment that needs to be stored, the barn is necessary so the equipment isn't outside. That's both for being an eyesore for anyone in the area, but also for keeping the equipment inside, especially through the winter. Just a couple of other additional items. The grass parking spaces are only on this plan because of a previous application for the clubhouse that at the time thought maybe additional parking spaces were needed and put them over there. They've never been used, but we thought if a prior board wanted them, let's show that we can still have them here. But the parking, I don't believe that there's been any issues with the parking at the main club, and these haven't been used. So we don't want to put pavers there. We don't want to create anything more than just grass. No expectation that anyone's going to be parking there. And it's just equipment coming in off the golf course. It's going across grass. We bring it in. We asked that our engineer, Drew Bennett, speak with the town engineer, and he did that. So we have drawings with us, which are the details for the dry well. And he's done that both in a sketch form, an 8.5 by 11, and also on the actual civil sheets. And the mention about the grading, it's a flat site. I have some photos. So there's no contours on there because it's flat. There's no grading required to stick the barn in that location. It also shows the extent of the screening, both for the properties over here, considerably higher than the building, and then also I have another one which is to the hedge road that's there. I think that the questions that I'll double check.
I think that's almost everything.
Landscape, the exterior lighting, there's the cut sheets that we have in there. It's obviously it's a dark sky fixture, very minimal. They're on the front, only on this side of the barn, right by the doors.
Okay.
We also have one which is code required at the exterior door, and they're only about that large.
Great. Do any board members have any questions for the applicant? Okay. Well, it's your
Tony?
application.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're going to you now anyway.
Okay, great, thank you. I wasn't sure if Tom wanted grading just to have grade away from the building, even if it's flat. I don't know.
I'll certainly have Drew Bennett discuss it with him.
Okay. So it's in the groundwater protection zone. I don't know if when you guys built the old building, the town had adopted its groundwater specs yet. but there are certain specs on the floor that we use in those groundwater protection areas?
Yes, those existing buildings do have the epoxy on the slab.
Okay. I was trying to understand some of the nature of the use in terms of, you say is it mowers, and what kind of equipment are you storing?
It can be a mixture. Generally, it wouldn't be the mowers, because the mowers, after the mower's used, it's brought back to the main building because the reels are sharpened.
Okay.
So this is going to be more of a long-term storage. Maybe something that's not used every day, but maybe used once a week, or possibly it could be a fall or a spring item.
So, for example, a tractor, or? Yeah.
Could be an aeration equipment, which is something that you might pull behind.
Okay, okay. And I'm just wondering now, how will you get to that building with the equipment?
Well, the equipment would be inside, and the overhead doors are only located here and here, so all equipment would be coming straight out to the golf course or straight back in.
I got you.
Or the equipment now comes out of the buildings here and it goes out and across.
Okay,
So if it's an attachment, they'd be taking the vehicle out of here, going in, picking up that attachment, and then going out to the course.
okay. And then the last thing is the people who are working on that, the equipment in that building, where would you think they would park?
They're parking here.
They're
The
parking
same
there.
staff, this barn was here. Same staff is utilizing that barn. It's been moved to here, still the same staff.
And you have plenty of parking on that,
Yes.
in there? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there was actually, it's not shown on here, but there was even some grass spaces, I believe, that were assigned here that have never been used.
Okay, I don't have any, as long as you, Tom Talmadge is happy, I'm happy.
Yeah, I don't have really much to add. I mean, it's something that they've had. Did you have the bathrooms over there too? Or is that
A bathroom.
one bathroom, so just from one you're going to two?
Yeah, it's the whole male, female, best to,
Okay. No, I don't really have much to add. It's something that you've had and you're just moving to a different space.
Okay. Lou?
Yeah, I really don't have much to add either. I think it's a good project that you have here. I don't see any problems with it. I'm, ready to go.
thank you.
Hey, Ian?
Yeah, I agree as well. My only question, I think you might have already said it, but you will meet the groundwater protection standards in this building as well?
Yes.
As previous? Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, well, I agree with the other board members. That was my question too, the groundwater protection, the nature of the use. And I think the drainage and grading just needs to be addressed. I know you have documents now, but we ask you to submit those to the planning board office with Ms. Walker, just to make sure the file is complete. And so I just want to review the questions with the board. Are the proposed 16 grass parking spaces acceptable? Do you want those parking spaces? You don't really want them, do you?
No, they only exist on this drawing.
Okay.
Otherwise, they don't exist.
It's just grass, I mean.
That's just grass, yeah. All right, well, we'll just leave it. Okay.
Yeah,
Are we good with that?
You could take it out, I mean, it might create problems to have it, I don't.
So
To me,
the site plan?
they haven't been used. I would think if I'm a neighbor, I would rather that you don't have them there.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think they should come out, I mean,
It works for me, but I respect the logic that caused you to put it on the site plan, because it was a board that I wasn't on that suggested they might be needed. But, I mean, if, I'm agnostic. It could stay on or go off. I don't really have a, how do we feel about the parking spaces?
I'm with you. I'm
Okay.
agnostic.
How about you?
Well, I would want to make sure that we have the planning department's analysis in terms of the parking calculation, if does that cause any issues, because.
I don't think so, because it's really, this is like a replacement building. They're just moving the building to a different site on the property.
Well, but you would be reducing the parking, so whatever, I would want to know what went into that previous decision.
Yeah.
I don't think you need them, It doesn't sound like you really care, but I wouldn't want to willy-nilly say.
But I was going to say, why don't we just leave it? I think we might be opening a can of worms there that's not really necessary.
We illustrated on the previous site
One
plan,
point.
nobody used them,
Yes,
and they're probably
okay,
not
okay.
going to use them now, but
So we're okay? A
Yes.
question, when the proposed grass parking spaces are acceptable?
Yep.
Should any additional landscaping or screening be provided? I think what's
I don't
been
think
proposed
so.
is adequate.
Yeah,
Is the proposed exterior lighting acceptable?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so we're good. And as long as you can get those the information to Tom and make sure that the file reflects that the groundwater protection policy is being observed, we'll be good to go. Okay. Thanks very much. All right, so now we're on to our public hearing, 7:10. Sorry for those of you waiting. Okay, so this is me. Take notice that a public hearing will be held before the East Hampton Town Planning Board at Town Hall, 159 Canada Road, East Hampton, on Wednesday, November 20th, 2019, at 7 p.m., or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider the application of below-the-bridge industrial park site plan special permit approval pursuant to Articles 5 and 6 of Chapter 255 of the East Hampton Town Code to develop 4 individual lots. 3 of the lots are to contain a series of individual stalls to be rented to contractors for storage. No buildings are proposed on these lots, and the only structures would be a series of 4-foot tall stockade fences to separate the, quote, pens, unquote. Lot 2 is proposed to be improved with a 7,317 square foot warehouse building for a wholesale building supplies distributor, along with parking, landscaping, lighting, and related accessory structures. Lot 1 contains 42,260 square feet. Lot 2 contains 42,229 square feet. Lot, I'm assuming 3, there's no number here, contains 42,265 square feet. Lot 4 contains 42,312 square feet. The property is located on the south side of Springs Fireplace Road, East Hampton, and is situate in the commercial industrial zoning district as shown on the official zoning map of the town of East Hampton, and is identified on the Suffolk County tax map as parcel number, it should be parcels number 300-145-3-9.4, 11.1, 12.1, 21.1, 22.1/145-5-4.1, 13.1. Subject application is classified as an unlisted action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, Part 617, New York Code of Rules and Regulations. In Chapter 128, Environmental Quality Review of the Town Code, is set of plans prepared by Chafe Engineering, PLLC, dated revised May 23, 2019, including site plan C1, grading and drainage plan C3, and temporary erosion control plan C2, and details C4, dated revised October 9, 2017, and lighting plan C6, dated revised September 25, 2018, a set of plans prepared by Southampton Engineering Services PC, dated December 8, 2017, including proposed 3D views, FP, proposed site plan 1, proposed landscape plan 2, proposed foundation plan 3, proposed first floor plan 4, proposed mezzanine plan 5, proposed elevation 6, proposed mezzanine structure plan 7, proposed sections AA, BB, CC 8, drainage and sanitary plan 9, lighting plan 10, and details 11. Details 12, lighting plan L1 prepared by East Hampton Land Planning LLC, dated revised May 26, 2019, and lighting plan lot L1 prepared by Hampton Site Planning and Design, dated revised September 25, 2018, are available for inspection at the Planning Board Office, Suite 103, 300 Pentagon Place, East Hampton, New York, dated October 23, 2018. Shouldn't it be 2019? Samuel Kramer, Chairman. Okay. All right, now our hearing is open. This is the time for the public to weigh in on this particular application. As I mentioned earlier, if you try to confine your remarks, the board will just listen. We won't offer remarks at this time. And anybody wishes to be heard, please. Oh, yes, I do, thank you. What a good idea. Are the affidavits in order?
I have reviewed the affidavits, and it appears that the service was proper, the notice was proper. I had a question about one of the stamps, but it has been clarified. We are good to go.
We're good to go, great. Okay, thank you. And when you come to the mic, please state your name and spell it if you would for the record. Come on up. Oh, Eric, I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. This, I'm like, glad. I'm sorry.
comfy.
All right. Well, don't get too comfy.
Whoa.
So the property is this collection of tax map parcels. It's on Springs Fireplace Road, where Queens Lane intersects, and Cheryl Foster's Path. Access is proposed from Cheryl Foster's Path and from an existing curb cut on Springs Fireplace Road. This is the site plan for lots, I believe it's 1, 3, and 4. Lot 2 is the warehouse and building supplies lot. I don't right now, I forgot to add the site plan for it, but if it's needed, I can call it up. We have it somewhere because it was scanned previously. But basically, this is the layout with access for lots 3 and 4 coming from Cheryl Foster's, and Lot 1 and Lot 2 via common driveway, taking access from Springs Fireplace Road.
Okay, we're good. Now, please come.
My name is Robert Pine. I am a resident of Springs, 497 Springs Fireplace Road, and I would like to comment on Below the Bridge project that is to be reviewed in public session. I provided this by email around the 1st of November. First, let me be clear. I'm not opposed to a place to provide parking for commercial vehicles on Springs Fireplace corridor, subject to the following. The project should be well screened from Springs Fireplace Road by plantings, and no variance from standard code from the minimum 50 feet required by code should be allowed. I believe this has already been agreed to by the zoning board. They refused to make any variances to this. So I'm hoping that no variance will be made by the planning board. The surface of the parking should be hard surfaced sufficiently so that dust and mud are not dragged out onto the road by the in and out of the vehicles using the parking area. If there is drag out onto the road, the owner should be required to clean it and take measures to mitigate it in the future. I visited the site today, and some gravel has been placed. I would say this gravel is insufficient. It is not hard and needs to be made into a hard surface. If hazardous chemicals are allowed to be stored on the property, they should be subject to inspection a minimum of 1 time per year to ensure compliance. Only the least hazardous chemicals should be permitted in this special groundwater area. Owners must have an emergency mitigation plan in case any chemicals leak into the groundwater. Storage of chemicals should be enclosed sheds and should be subject to inspection by appropriate authorities. Particulate matter represents a serious health hazard, especially along this corridor, which is often full of mud and dust in the air in the drier parts of the year. And as such, transfer of garbage, trash, and waste, human or other, should not be permitted on these premises. There is already a garbage transfer that is taking place there. I don't believe that it follows any of the rules that are required for garbage transfer, and I would hope that the planning board would say that this is not permitted. Water runoff must be properly controlled and treated so as to prevent any contamination of the groundwater. I hope that most of the egress from this property will be on Queens Lane and not on Springs Fireplace Road in order to ensure a safe egress onto Springs Fireplace Road and a control as best as possible of the additional traffic. I'm counting on the planning board to arrange for proper inspection of the project to ensure that all its approvals are properly implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Please come to the mic and identify yourself.
Thank you. My name's John Potter. I'm a member of Corridor Watch. We adopted the road on County Road 41. We're responsible for litter cleanup. And we've had a long-standing interest in the Springs Fireplace corridor and the commercial development that's going on there. And and we've monitored this process not since its inception, since that predates several of us. But within the purview that you have as a planning board, I have to commend you on the way you have approached this complicated and difficult project. I think you've done an excellent job, and certainly you can see in the archaeological record of that Carter in that area that the recent planned and site plan approved properties look a lot better than many of them from prior periods. So thank you for that. My first comment is this is not a storage facility. This has the potential for 39 businesses operating every day. They're unregulated. There's no clear zoning that guides what they're supposed to do. We just have to rely on the property owners to manage them and to report if there are things that fire marshals or code enforcement should be notified. So these are operating businesses. It's not like a passive storage facility or a minute storage operation. It's been 4.5 years roughly since this site plan was applied for. This business has been in operation since then without any site plan review or any code violations noted. The site plan is approved, has roughly 13 businesses per acre with the setbacks and the transportation corridors required in each of these areas. If that was a residential development, this would be considered high-density, affordable housing at that kind of concentration. And if that ends up being a template for the rest of this commercial and industrial area, this will be by far the most congested area in our town. Currently, there are 20 applications in site plan review in this general area, the commercial industrial area on Springs Fireplace Road. And currently, unfortunately, there are several property owners operating identical facilities. Crews show up, they load equipment, they leave employee vehicles, they depart for their daily work, and they return to those locations. So this operation that you're reviewing, and we're very pleased to see that a careful review's gone on, is taking place in numerous other areas in the same commercial area. I guess finally, I would say this is a mixed-use area. It's a mixed-use residential and commercial area. And I think nothing to me says more clearly than what I read in the paper last week. The town is now considering relocating the senior center from this area, in part because they recognize the congested area is not going to be suitable for senior activities. So again, I commend the town planning board for taking the care and consideration on this property, but believe me, it's just the tip of the iceberg. And we're going to be dealt with significant challenges in the future. One bright light I would shine on it from the town board standpoint, and this has been in response to calls from the planning board. They're going to have a traffic study next year. They're going to invest in a consultant-driven commercial development plan. These will be very helpful, and we hope that they will also provide some better zoning guidance so that you folks have an easier job when you do review them. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for your comments. Does anybody else wish to address the board on this matter? Okay. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Excuse me?
We're just here to hear questions.
Okay, thank you. So is,
Motion to close?
thank you. Second? Okay, all in favor? Okay, so we close the hearing. All right, thank you. On to the next thing. Have a good evening. Safe home, everybody. All right, we're going to go back to our work session, and the next application we have is for Brooks Park Cottage relocation.
Okay, this is an application to situate a 120-square-foot cottage at the site of the Pollock Krasner House and Study Center. The cottage building itself is part of a locally designated historic landmark on Neck Path. The site's about 1.6 acres. It's zoned A5 within the Harbor Protection Overlay District, Springs Historic District, and abuts title marshland associated with Accabonac Harbor. The site was converted to a semi-public facility in 1991. It was later designated a National Historic Landmark. There was a site plan recently for an addition to this building, which used to be a garage, it's now converted to an office, and a 96 square foot addition was added. This is a type 1 action under SECRA. It's a National Historic Landmark. You may want to discuss with the applicants what the intended use of the cottage is. There wasn't much detail in the application form. The ARB is going to be especially important in the review of this. Again, National Historic Landmark, Springs Historic District. It's also within a scenic area of statewide significance. And the Brooks Parks site where the cottage is being transferred from is also a historic landmark. You may wish to send comments to the ARB at this time. They'll be reviewing it shortly. We also strongly recommend that you hire a historic preservation consultant, someone with expertise on both sites. Mr. Robert Hefner, who prepared our historic landmark report, would be someone we'd suggest. As far as the site plan goes, there's numerous aspects that need to be revised. It looks like this is basically the plan from that previous site plan from about 3 years ago. They just added the cottage, but some of the notations haven't been changed. The title's not correct. The coverage calculations and sanitary calculations need to be corrected. They need to provide clearing calculations as well as parking calculations. This area of the site where they're proposing it is currently wooded. It looks like they may already be over cleared. If they're proposing additional clearing, that might require a variance. So relocating it may be necessary as a better alternative. There's no information on lighting and landscaping. The applicant should clarify whether or not they're proposing that, and you should determine whether or not that's needed. The sanitary system was installed in 1993. This does not trigger a mandatory upgrade. However, the applicant should know that there are a number of grants and rebate programs from the county and the town that could be utilized. The town is going to soon be considering a grant for the Springs General Store to update their sanitary system. And so there is a good amount of funding that's available that could improve that situation. Again, this isn't a terribly antiquated system, but obviously a low nitrogen system would be a significant upgrade, and this is harbor protection adjacent to Accabonac Harbor and a 10-foot depth of groundwater. The town engineer reviewed this. He found the engineering elements satisfactory. He didn't feel that drainage control structures were necessary for stormwater control. It is a 120 square foot building. It's 10 by 12. This does meet the criteria for a minor site plan, so when you do get a complete application, you may wish to discuss whether or not you're going to waive the public hearing. In the memorandum, there's a typo in the conclusion statement. It says it's ready for a public hearing. It is not. It's incomplete pending the revision of the site plan and any additional information that the board may want upon an initial review. So I will show you the aerial as well, and that will give you a better idea of the clearing issue in particular.
There's also a typo on secret type of action. It should
Yeah,
be type 1.
sorry, yeah.
But I'm just mentioning it to the board. It's a type 1 action.
So also, here's the elevation of the building itself. So it's actually these three properties here.
Can you enlarge it just a smidge more?
Yeah, no, I'm going to. I just wanted to also, if it's on here. So there we go. So those are that's the boundary of the Springs Historic District.
Okay.
As you can see, these are the parcels here. So it's,
Okay.
I mean, it's the heart of the historic
Right,
district. It has the
right.
Pollock Krasner house on it, I should say. And obviously, you can see the waters of Accabonac Harbor here as well. So this is the main building, the Pollock Krasner house. This is the entrance and gravel parking area, dirt gravel, I should say, kind of a mixture. This is that garage that is now an office. This is an outbuilding. So basically, they're proposing to put the cottage right here, and as you can see, that's wooded. I did look back through the previous records of the property as far as how, the extent of the clearing. It looks like it basically was at this amount of clearing with that lawn going way back into the 70s. So it's looks like that reflects what is grandfathered. That would need to be determined, and we need the calculations. But again, since this is an HPOD, it has an increased clearing restriction, and it looks to me as though about 50% of the property is already cleared, so they could be already over.
So would we get a determination from Ann on that, or what is?
No,
that?
not from Ann.
We just need the calculations on the site plan in order to know.
And then Lisa DeAndrea in our office and Mark Abramson in Natural Resources usually determine whether or not something's been further cleared.
Okay.
I don't think it has, but this would be additional clearing, and if they're already over it.
Yeah, then they need a variance, right?
Or relocated, which would be a better option.
Right. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Eric?
Well, I have a suggestion for the applicant, Mr. Potter, and the Nature Conservancy. If you, Eric, can you just zoom out a little bit? There's an interesting configuration. You've got this old, I believe this is an old file map, road going all the way to the harbor.
Yeah, it's part of Fort Pond Boulevard.
So if that were abandoned, the owners on each side would get half of it. And it seems like the owners on each side are the foundation, Mr. Potter, and the Nature Conservancy. So they may want to look into expanding their properties.
I don't think it's part of an urban renewal map, so they couldn't go through that process. It would need to come directly from the town board, right? I mean, the town board would basically have to give them that, because it's not.
Is it town?
I don't think so,
Town
anyway.
owned, that's a different story.
Well, it is. But I mean, you are mapped, most of the roads are town-owned, but there's already a plan in place saying you have right to take half. But I don't know that that's the case, because it is somewhat conspicuous here that half of that right-of-way is part of this property. So that's something we'd have to look into as far as.
It's worth examining, but, you know, maybe not relevant
Not
to
now.
this. Yeah, maybe later, maybe soon. Okay, anybody have any questions for Eric? No. Okay, would the applicant like to address the board?
Hi, my name is Helen Harrison. I'm the director of the Pollock Krasner House and Study Center, and I want to go over some of those issues that were raised, which the reason that some of the, well, it's not up, but some of the information on the site plan, it is the survey from not 2015, or I guess it was 2014, when we applied to have the garage renovated. Since it was such a small structure, it didn't seem like it was worthwhile to have a whole new survey done. We simply indicated on the old survey where the building would be located. It's only 120 square feet. So that's why the title of the plan itself is incorrect. What will it be used for? Well, what was it used for in the past? It was the guest cottage on the Rocky Point property that belonged to James Brooks and Charlotte Park when they lived in the old Lawson cottage, which they purchased in 1949. They only bought the buildings, they didn't buy the land. This was the Benson estate, and they just leased the land. When Hurricane Carol destroyed their studio in 1954, they decided that rather than rebuild on someone else's land, they would move their house to Springs to be closer to their friends, Jackson and Lee, who used to stay in this little cottage that we proposed to move when they would go and visit Charlotte and Jim, because their cottage only had one bedroom. It didn't have any plumbing, it didn't have any heat, it was just a shack. But it is called the guest cottage because that's what they used it for. Well, Joe Potter's father, actually jacked up the two buildings, put them on a barge, floated them across Napeague Harbor, and they were trucked up Neck Path and put at number 128, which is where they are today. Then two other buildings were also put on the site. One was built there purposely, and the other one was moved from another location. Now, this is CPF property, and the proposal is to demolish all of the buildings on the site. We would like to save this building, partly because it is a town historic landmark, and also because of its association with Jackson and Lee, which is why we propose moving it to their property and interpreting it as the guest cottage, but not to use it as a guest cottage. We're not going to rent it out. This is not the Lincoln bedroom. We really would like to just use it for storage, but have an exterior interpretation with a photographic panel and some text to identify it and explain what it was used for in the past. But it really would not be, the public would not go into it. What we have on the site plan, these notes are, oh yeah. The survey, this is the building. So it would be more than 50 feet back from the road, because this is urban renewal area, so we have to have a 50-foot setback. But there are no trees there. I know in the aerial survey, you don't really see that, but there is a huge blue atlas cedar that sort of canopies over that whole area. But underneath it there's nothing.
I know.
That's why we put it there.
Right, okay.
I don't know if you could you go back to the?
Yeah, sure, the aerial.
Yeah,
James.
right. Okay, so what we're looking at is this area right here. And here's the blue atlas cedar. So right off the parking lot here is just vacant. There's not even a bush there. And it's only 10 by 12, so the thing would fit, it's even shorter than this car. So it would fit right there. That makes it more accessible, more visible to people who would see it, as they come into the property, rather than trying to put it somewhere on the lawn, which I think it would, kind of get lost. And then we would probably have to, I don't know how people would really get to it. Anyway, it seems more accessible where we had located it, so I'd really prefer to leave it there if possible. There won't be any extra parking required. There wouldn't be any extra clearing, no exterior lighting, no landscaping. It's flat there, but with the proposed foundation, we could certainly put a dry well around it if that were desirable. Wouldn't be a problem. It's just a simple concrete pad with footings, and then the building will sit on that. It has an existing floor, so there would be a little ventilation space underneath. But that is the proposal. I guess we don't have that picture up, but
Of the building itself? Yeah.
What it,
There it is.
okay. Yeah, so this is the pad, these are the footings, and it's just a concrete slab underneath it. So were there any other issues that
Does
you?
anybody have any other questions for the applicant?
There was the septic,
No septic. Oh, you
Oh.
mean what, the existing septic?
no, what the planning department suggested.
Right.
Yeah, you're not required to update the sanitary system, but I do think that it's a good candidate for that, and there's a number of funding sources available from the town.
Right, that would be a separate project.
It's a separate
Yeah,
project, but it's
yeah.
something
Oh,
that.
no, we're definitely considering it.
Right.
Great.
Well, that's good. Okay, well, thank you. That was,
Well, you answered my question, because I was curious. I thought where it came from was going to remain a historic site, but you're saying that they want to demolish the.
No, that's the problem. That I'm on the management plan committee, and we, for years, have been discussing how to get this site up and running as a community resource. But it's just become prohibitively expensive because the buildings have been allowed to deteriorate for the last 6 or 7 years since the town acquired them. And it looks like it's just going to be too expensive to try and rehabilitate them. I mean, anything can be rehabilitated if you have enough money.
the money, right.
And it is CPF, the CPF funds are there, but each year, as the buildings deteriorate more and more, it
Becomes
becomes more and more
project,
expensive. to the point where it just isn't worth it.
It's a shame.
It is a real
is, it's
shame,
too bad.
and don't get me started,
Yeah, because I was curious why this was being moved and not
just to save it.
yeah. No, no,
Yeah.
I thought maybe that whole area was going to get
No,
mixed up.
no. Unfortunately, no.
Okay. Well, thank you. This is my application, and it's an interesting story. Of course, it's a point of pride for us that we have this wonderful art community in this area, and the wonderful opportunities that people have to see this historic site. And I commend your foundation for making this effort to save that building and further enhance the site with I find it a very romantic story, that it's the cottage that they used to for their visits. So I think the only thing, I'm relieved to know that the clearing there's no clearing necessary, because that's great, because we were getting into a can of worms on that.
And we've never done any clearing on the site.
Right. No, I know that. I'm just going over my notes here. It would be great as a separate matter, as we've all identified, it's not relevant to this project, but to look into some sanitary updates. There are pots of money now, and you might be able to get it done very, very cheaply. So it'd be worth exploring while you've got some construction over there. I think one of the issues for us is because it's a type 1 action under SEQA, we have to involve other agencies, and the National Historic Register status requires that of us. So I think we need to consider hiring a consultant, and that would be on us. And we'll figure out what budget we have for that and how we'll manage it, but I'm sure it won't be a big stretch for a local historian to make an assessment of that.
Bob probably knows the building.
Yeah, I don't know that we can, he's a very likely source, but I'm not sure how we do that. I think we have to publicly source it without identifying who we would have do it.
We're not really proposing to change the building.
Right.
Except it's going to need a new roof. I mean, we'll have to rehabilitate it a bit,
Right.
but it won't be added to
Right.
or have another door or another window.
Yeah, I understand. You're trying to preserve it and just maintain it in its, to the best of your ability without changing any of the features of it specifically. So let's just review the questions, I guess. I mean, I just wanted to reiterate, it is in such a environmentally sensitive area that it would be great if you could, pursue that low nitrogen system on the side. So I'd like to propose we declare lead agency for this application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right, okay. Do we feel that any additional landscaping or screening needs to be provided?
No.
I don't. Are you okay with that?
No, we want it to be visible.
Yeah, no, not only that, it's already empty. It's not like they're taking out.
No, and yeah, it's something that's
Foliage
being
to-
showcased.
Yeah,
That's 50 feet back from the road. and-
yeah, I don't think there's any problem there. I think we should send written comments to the ARB. They'll have something to say about the roof. Right. Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
I don't know what we would say. Yeah, I think
Okay,
we
well,
would like to
we'll just condition approval on ARB approval.
Yeah, we'd like to
Okay.
hear their comments.
Yeah.
They
but-
need
I
to
agree.
approve it because it's in the historic district.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. ARB comments. All righty.
I mean, I think just quickly, I think it's always a good idea to send comments just to say we reviewed it, we're curious
I
what you
agree.
think. Just that much,
It could
not
be
to tell
2
them what to
lines,
say.
just so they know we've seen it, because a lot of the time,
We're curious to hear your, take on it.
So your comments are asking the ARB for comments?
Well,
I
Jameson,
don't know that we reviewed it.
well, the reason I say that, because in the past, and this is more of a ZBA thing, when we don't send comments, then people can spin it, we liked it, we didn't like it, and so I think it's good, and I've heard from other chair people that they like to know that we've seen it, that's all. That's come up several times.
I think we can write some, I can work on something with Jody really simple to just say, we've seen this, we understand there are going to be some rehabilitation efforts to the roof and so forth, we'll be interested in your take on that. So we'll do that, right, Jody? And should a historic preservation consultant be contacted to review the proposal?
I have a question about that one. I'm not sure I understand why we need to do that, and maybe it's because I just don't get it. This is an organization that's involved in preserving this site as an historic site. Their interest is that.
Right.
What would a consultant potentially say that would be a problem, let's say, with this project?
I don't think they will, but it's always good to have a third party verify that what they're saying is correct, and I don't think it's going to take too much work for them to do that.
What they're saying is correct. What they're saying is to take a building that, from property that, if they don't do it, it's going to get demolished, and move it to this site, and so what could he possibly say? No, leave it?
No, Lou, he might say the existing layout of the Paula Krasner site as is important to the historic site, and that locating this building in the middle of it contradicts the site, and it'd be better to put the building over here.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the specifics. What my general understanding is that, and you know, I favor this project. It's not, but I think in terms of the protocol, you want a third party to just assess it, because it could be some other organization in which, or with which we have less faith and who has demonstrated less historic compatibility to, you know, the nature of the site. So as a general protocol, we want to have someone else weighing in, so it's not just our opinion and the applicant's opinion.
General sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, may I make a comment too? My concerns is that, now back to getting comments or giving comments to the ARB, the ARB may have these very similar questions and struggle with this, because in addition to Randy's point, which was my fear as well, is that it's a historic building, but that's a historic site.
Right.
So the importance of that site needs to be considered, but this is also a historic building coming from another historic site. So, and if there's added layers of protection here that the town, we have our own protections that are recited under the code, but if there's national registry concerns, I don't think the attorney that advises the ARB, nor myself, understands that, you know, at least
To coordinate, yes.
but that would be something that maybe we could also coordinate with the ARB, because I feel like that question, that understanding that both boards just need to understand how this would work.
Well, I could clarify by saying that the site itself is not the historic landmark. It is two buildings on the site, the studio and the house. And those are identified on the National Historic Landmark plaque. And there are precedents for this, too. There are other historic sites that I know of that are part of our network where other buildings have been moved or built on properties without-
They can't hear you.
Helen, could you come to the mic, please, because it's,
We're all absorbed in your...
For example, the Florence Griswold house up in Old Lyme, Connecticut, they have a beautiful property on the Connecticut River, and no, it's the Lieutenant River, and they moved another artist studio onto the property, again, to preserve it, but it was not originally part of the historic site itself. They also built a purpose-built museum building on the site. And there was no objection from the National Park Service or the Department of the Interior, who oversee and they are an NHL as well.
Right.
There was no objection to that, because it's the building itself, the Florence Griswold house, that is the historic landmark.
Right.
And this one, though, is in the Springs Historic District.
Right.
Yeah, which puts
But if you had a house in the Springs Historic District and you wanted to build a garage on your property, you wouldn't be prevented from doing
No,
that.
but you would have to go to the ARB.
Yeah, you would just have to get, it's just the permissions, it's just as Jameson is saying, it's the layers of permissions that we need to, and that's why the historic consultant would be better to guide us through that.
I wouldn't
in
want this board to say,
coordination.
this is a great idea, we love it, and they do all
Right.
the approvals, and then we run into the fact that we're not the only body that needs to
So it
say
has
it.
jurisdiction, yeah.
Right. No, I'm fine with
Okay.
it. I'm just
That's
saying
great.
it's
Does that
not,
answer your
it's not,
question? Yes,
it's not the property itself that's the
Okay.
Right.
landmark.
Well, no,
Thank
thanks for
you.
that
And do you
clarification.
know, so since we have you, the property that it's moving from,
Yeah,
on
that's a
Necktown.
town landmark. And it
that's, okay,
it belongs to the town, so the town is going to give it to us or sell it to us for $1.
Right.
And then we'll move it.
okay.
Okay, well, that's helpful. That was very helpful. Anybody else? Have any
Well, the only thing I would say, and I'm not sure if, I do think that we should have a historic, whatever the process is to get a historic consultant to look, I think we should do that. And perhaps that should be coordinated with the ARB, so maybe in our letter, we should say, we're going to ask for this, can we share the, just so we do it once and efficiently.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay, very good. And then, so the last question is, should the plans be amended? We just asked it just as a housekeeping, to do some of those. Yeah, just change those, yeah, because then it's on record. One of the things that we have problems with is just having an accurate record of things, because we understand, we get it.
Although, I think to that point, you could probably wait, and so maybe I'm giving you bad advice, but I think you could probably wait to make sure that the location is okay, so that you don't change it a million times, but the final plans have to match.
Yes, no, that's true, but, yeah, and that's not going to hold it up, but, yeah, no.
When we get that report, then I can
Right.
have the architect
That sounds like a good
You know,
idea.
you have two plans going here. That is not a survey. That's a sketch.
Well, it's based off a survey.
It's based off a
It's site plan
survey.
based off a license.
But it's not it doesn't satisfy our site.
No, it should. It's based off a survey from Weaver, and it's stamped by an architect licensed in the state of New York. So they're saying we're taking the survey, and now we're drawing our site plan over it, and I have a stamp as a licensed professional in New York. We can accept that.
I have never seen us accept that before.
We have plenty of site plans that are drawings like that. They're not,
They have to be put on a survey.
They have to have a notation that says that it's based off of a survey that was prepared by a licensed surveyor, and the site plan has to be prepared by a licensed professional with their stamp certifying that it was based off a survey prepared by another licensed professional.
It's news to me. And they can apply for a building permit without a survey?
Well, they'll need a survey as well, but you're approving a site plan.
Oh, well, so they're going to need a survey to get a building permit.
Yes.
So,
Right, but that's a little, yeah, I take your point, but I
Usually-
think we'll take care of that going forward, one assumes, yes?
I want to get it approved.
Right, yeah, that makes sense,
Why having a survey if it's not going to be approved?
right. Okay,
well, how are you going to do the clearing calculation without a
There is
survey?
no clearing.
No, but I mean, the memo says they want the clearing calculation, we want
Well, we
to show the
still-
sanitary.
Yeah, it appears that there will be no additional clearing. There is clearing on the property. That's usually something that you ask for, is that the site plan has the amount of clearing and illustrates the clearing line. It's good to have for future applications to set, the benchmark of where we are now. It's something, all of those things, the proper title, the sanitary calculations being amended, the sanitary calculations reflect adding the office, not this project, so they're wrong.
The wetlands lined,
Well, the wetlands
setback.
line is not important, it's 200 feet away.
I think we should just do it the way we normally do it.
Well, that's the way we normally do it, is to have them put sanitary parking, coverage calculations, a proper title. That's what I was asking for. I mean, it is a minor application in the sense of the square footage of the building. You do have authority to waive those, but the way that we usually do it is to require all that information.
And won't the survey and the clearing be referenced in a CO later that?
Not
so-
necessarily. But, I mean,
I think Randy's concern maybe is losing the info for future,
yeah, I mean,
which it seems like we're going to
the
accomplish that.
survey that they have will show a clearing boundary and have those calculations for the building permit and CO. We usually ask for it on site plans. You don't have to ask for it. But my point is just that you have sanitary calculations here that say you're adding a 340 square foot office. That's not this project.
Right.
You have, what's the other thing here that they had? Septic design that doesn't reflect it. The coverage calculations are based on this addition, not this. So they haven't been updated to include the extra 120 square feet. None of these things are big things. It's just having a plan that
It's
reflects
housekeeping, yes, they're housekeeping details that
It's something that
you can.
the architect who
right?
prepared this can easily
Yeah.
do it.
Okay.
I mean, they should know.
The last thing I want to say is, I mean, I would defer to the engineer here, but I do think that drainage is going to be important, especially being so close to the water. I know it's a small structure, but
Yeah, Tom wrote a letter, he said he's okay with it.
You weighed in on it?
Yeah, he said he's okay with the drainage as proposed. And I think that because it's, my concern was if they were going to be clearing to add the building, that I would have asked for,
well, I can't believe that he's saying that, but
something,
okay.
But I think because it's already, there's no, there are no plantings there, there's not.
Well, I know, but you lose that much ground to absorb the water, and
No, no, I
in a heavy
understand. It's
rainfall, it's more
120
likely to end up
square
in
feet,
the
yes, yeah,
harbor. but-
Yeah. There would be some stormwater runoff from that hard surface from the roof, but.
And less,
Yeah,
water infiltration where it sits.
I'm with you, but he didn't have any problem with it, so. I guess, I'm just guessing because it's so little, it's a tiny building. Not that, I take your point, believe me.
I'm not an engineer.
Yeah.
Just-
Okay, well, is everybody satisfied with that? So we'll go from there and we'll work with the ARB and thank you.
And so you'll let me know if you want to bring in someone to take a look at it?
I think what our next step will be to find the process for hiring a historic consultant, and then we'll go with that. And we'll coordinate with the ARB and their various policies, and with guidance from a historic consultant, how we're going to deal with
I think the idea is they're going to advise the town and not you,
landmark
right?
status. and-
Yeah, I mean, I think this is really more about taking a hard look under secret, and it is a type 1 action. So just establishing that we had somebody with a historic
Right,
background. looking at
credentials,
it.
yes.
We will pursue the town funding, hiring somebody, but also if you know somebody, and I'm sure you do, you seem to actually be one of those people, but somebody who could write up the description of that, the historic background of it, get a document that is from a noted professional in historic preservation, that might be sufficient for the board as well. We might not need to go outside of just requiring something from the applicant, but normally when we do this, we hire a third-party person
Right,
that's not.
because it's the proper protocol to do so. Anyway, that's really where we are. You know, just what you said at the mic tonight was so helpful, because none of us, well, I didn't know. I knew it was an historic building, but I didn't know the provenance, I didn't know the story. So that's really helpful.
Well, there's a website you can go to and get the background and some photographs.
Right.
The Brooks Park Heritage Project.
Right. Okay. Well,
Does this get routed to National Park Service?
Not the Park Service, I don't believe. I need to go back and look at that previous site plan and see what we did, because I'm not, we
Yeah.
usually have National Register properties.
we'll figure it out.
But yeah, I have to look, but there is a federal agency that needs to be notified. I think it's the
The
Interior.
Department of the
Interior.
Interior is in charge of the National Historic Landmark Program.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good night. So next up is a preliminary site plan for 44 Three Mile Harbor Road. Preliminary site plan evaluation is kind of a one-shot deal. We have an applicant come before us and give us their concept for development project, and we get to tell them what we think.
Okay, so the property is roughly 35,000 square feet, some neighborhood business. It has a CO for a restaurant and bar. The plan is to demolish those and build a new two-story mixed-use building with 21,000 plus square feet, including a 12,000 plus square foot retail store on the first floor, a roughly 5,000 square foot office space, and 4,000 square feet roughly of workforce housing on the second floor. A roughly 11,000 square foot underground parking area comprising 29 spaces and 26 at-grade parking spaces are also proposed. All the uses proposed, office, retail, affordable housing, are allowable in the NB zoning district. However, once you go over 10,000 square feet of retail, you become a superstore, which is a prohibited use. Therefore, this project would need a use variance as it's drawn up. They're okay on building coverage, just below the maximum allowable. Total lot coverage existing is over what's allowed. They're actually reducing it slightly, but they'd still be over it by 6,000 square feet. You might want to, upon formal application, contact the building inspector to see if they're grandfathered. It's my understanding that we have grandfathered sites that were over coverage, provided they're not increasing it, and again, they are decreasing it. It's required to have doubled setbacks where bordered in a residence district. The principal building requires a rear yard setback variance since it doesn't meet the doubled setback. The parking proposed on the southerly side is proposed on the property line and does not meet the 30-foot setback requirement based on the doubled setback need. The parking proposed along 3 Mile Harbor Road is also located along the property line and doesn't meet the 25-foot front yard setback. The board can relax those setbacks as parking is an accessory structure. If found to be in the interest of good planning, the standards were attached. Parking calculations. It requires 108 spaces under our code. 55 have been provided, 29 in the basement, 26 at ground level. So it would require a substantial variance in parking, from the ZBA. No sanitary calculations have been provided. However, they're in groundwater management zone 5, which has a more restrictive requirement. It appears that they'd be at roughly 300 gallons per day allowed. The proposed uses total up to roughly 2,000 gallons per day. So this is significantly over what would be allowed, and they would probably need sewage treatment from the health department. Additionally, there's no test hole data provided, but there is a shallow depth of groundwater in this general area. In conclusion, the planning department's evaluation indicates that a number of aspects of the project do not meet zoning, including the proposed retail, which is classified as a superstore, which is prohibited. Additionally, the project appears to be overly aggressive for the proposed site, with only half the required parking spaces being provided and sanitary flow of over 4 times, which is permitted by the health department. The preliminary site plan application, the purpose of such an application is to obtain feedback from the planning board before proceeding to prepare more in-depth formal plans. The board should discuss the evaluation here and provide the applicant with comments on the proposal should they submit a formal application.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Does anybody have any?
I would like to see the area.
Yeah, I'll go through the plans here. So,
I think I know where it is.
yeah, this is the,
Is it where the discotheque was?
yeah, I think it's called the Spur Restaurant currently, doing business as.
Okay. So I know where it is.
But yeah, no, I'll show you, I'll just run through this. So this is the cover sheet in the set of plans that they have. This is the actual site plan with 3 Mile Harbor Road being here, so this is north. The building is basically proposed to face along 3 Mile Harbor Road with the parking along the front and along the side here. And then there's access basically around the building and then down into here where you would access the garage, the underground garage. So I guess starting from the basement up. So this is the basement parking garage plan. Access would be, I believe, although they can clarify this if I'm incorrect, from an access point on 3 Mile Harbor Road, you drive around the side of the building and then down below into the garage. And there's 29 spaces there. There's an elevator here. First floor plan, which includes, I believe, office and retail space. This is the proposed 12,000 square foot retail space. I'm reading this newly, so I'm not sure where the office is. The applicants might be able to clarify that. But I just see office here in the first floor layout. So here's the second floor plan. Okay, I'm sorry. The office space is proposed on the second floor, which is right here. And then there would be 6 individual, no, that's one thing I forgot to mention. 6 individual units that would be for workforce housing, registered affordable. All apartments over commercial structures in the town need to be registered affordable. One thing I didn't mention, which I don't remember exactly where in the memo it is, but I just want to make sure that I'm not saying the wrong thing here. Okay. Yeah, I'm missing exactly where it is, but the standards for apartments over commercial structures don't allow more than 4 units on any one site, and they're proposing 6, so that's another variance that would be required. So that is, I think, that's up to the 2nd floor, and they're modest in size. They're I think they're each like a little over 600 square feet. Yeah, well, that's the total, they did the total area. I think they're each a little over 600 square feet. They're basically like minimum size. Although, well, yeah, I shouldn't say that, because you have 6 of them, 4,000, so what, they're probably about 750. So I'll pull up the aerial. This is a survey of the existing conditions. So the bar faces this way, as opposed to they're proposing it face, this building proposed facing through Mount Harbor. But this is the bar, and then they have an expansive parking lot, which is really the cause for their total lot coverage being so high. But let's see. So it's basically right after the break in North Main Street, where it comes between Springs Fireplace Road and 3 Mile Harbor. It's this property here.
And there are residents behind it and across the street?
Yes,
It's
yeah.
all residential, and what
This
is
is
property to the north isn't?
This is a commercial building.
Yeah, right.
A garage, I believe.
But to the east are residences,
residences,
and across the street is,
Well, there's that mason there that we had in,
Oh, this, here you
to the west.
Here?
but it's
Yeah.
south,
There.
it's south of that. But
Yeah.
that's a residential lot.
Well, this is actually zoned, I believe,
Isn't it?
NB here.
Okay,
This is residential.
yes.
And then this is residential going down. This is obviously park, because it's that part of the divide. And then that is,
Sure, that's.
I believe zone commercial
residentially
and-
zoned over there on the
well, we
west
could
side.
just put up the zoning.
I think he's got a CI zone in
We
there.
had that stone.
Yeah, the zoning is, it's very irregular around there.
Yeah.
But even the gas station is residentially zoned. I know that.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, I'm talking across the street and a little south of this, but that area, there are many uses in there, but I'm pretty sure it's a residential
Oh,
zone.
yeah, that one, okay, yes, that one is. I thought you meant the Empire down here.
No,
So their NB, that masonry building,
to the north.
Mason's building,
Yeah,
is on CI. These guys here are CI.
Okay.
Those two, that yard.
okay. And then the
but then everything else
karate
is-
studio,
is
right? Everything
residential.
else is residential. Okay, well, that was my understanding. Okay.
So, I guess I'll put up the site plan. I don't know if you have any questions for me.
Any idea what the elevation there is?
Ground water elevation?
Or that, I mean, no, the surface elevation?
I don't know for sure, but it's probably something like 15 feet.
Yeah, so, I mean, groundwater's at 5.
Yeah.
Putting an underground garage,
Close to 13 feet, you have more.
so
13.7.
Well, we can ask the applicant too, if they have a proposal to put an under.
Close to what we get. You said 10 feet, they said 13, so.
Does anybody have any other questions for Eric? All right, great. If the applicant would like to come and address the board?
Hi, my name is is Pam Glazer. I'm the applicant and architect as of now. So we propose to do a fairly aggressive mixed-use building, and I realize that it's not something that's been precedented here in East Hampton. So we're treading new territory, and we're trying to get a sense of what would be acceptable for this site. So we've presented this 12,000 square foot retail space, which again is larger than the 10,000 foot zone that is zoned for. But from a lot coverage and parking area, there was no advantage to decreasing it 2,000 square feet. We didn't gain anything, we didn't gain more parking, it didn't really help the site. So from the layout, this works very nicely. We added more parking in the basement, which I guess also is not precedented, but definitely to the advantage. And we're hoping to do a very green building here, really, solar, possibly some new technology in sewage treatment. And I think, in addition to adding the workforce housing, we went for the maximum amount that we thought we could get in the building. We could even do more. I thought it was important. I'm not sure why it's 4 apartments is the restricted amount, but we put that on the residential side so that they would have outside space facing the residential, which is to the side of the building, and the commercial and offices facing the road. So that's a sum up. You might want to add some things, right?
I mean,
Could you just identify yourself, please?
oh, I'm sorry, Frank Salio.
Frank?
Frank Salio.
Celia, would you spell that, please?
Cilione.
Okay, great, thank you.
So my partner and I have owned the building since 1998. We got the zoning changed from CI to NB back in, I believe it was 2009. Just with foresight of eventually wanting to, redevelop the property to a more better town-serving use. It's been a nightclub since the 40s, a restaurant since the 40s. It is a pre-existing non-conforming use. We're not required to have a music permit there, nothing. Part of this plan was spurred, if you will, and even though one of our tenant there is part of the space is the spur, but was the Hamlet study that was done, where they specifically identified properties like ours as prime candidates to redevelop, and kind of hit on, addressing the workforce housing issue, which everyone knows is an issue. I'm actually surprised it's limited to 4, so we thought, well, this has to make sense feasibly for us to, want to do this project. We have a viable existing operation there, but is it the highest and best use in its existing state? No, we don't think it is. And what we're proposing to do here is kind of, put in a market of some sort that is easily accessible for the town. We all know how difficult it is to go shopping in town to get basic necessities. We have the Spur, who's our tenant, actually has expressed an interest in taking the second floor and doing, I don't know if you know anything about the Spur, but it's kind of like a mini, it's a co-working space. And it's really an amazing operation that they have going on. They have a location in Southampton as well. So it's not a heavy use, but it's something that is definitely appealing to a lot of entrepreneurs who work out of their homes. Most of their members are, one-man shops, whether they're web designers, PR people, whatever. Those are the typical members of the Spur. So they're very attracted with the idea, because then they would get a larger area to work out of and be able to provide more amenities to their members. And as Pamela said, it's, you know, I think she's done a great job in designing a building that is, you know, not only aesthetically very appealing, but a big component of this, and it's not reflective on the plans, is basically to make the building as green as possible. Like, you know, Tesla with they have the roof cladding tiles, and they have wall panels now that are all solar cells. So we would incorporate as much as that as possible into the site. There's a ton of sun that you know, from morning till the end of the day that hits this site. It's been almost fully cleared since God knows how long. So we could definitely take advantage of that. I don't know much about the septic requirements and what we can do, but you know, I think she's allocated some space on the plans already for that, and we would do whatever we needed to do to accommodate the county's requirements or the town's requirements for that.
The bioswale here, so there's definitely some drainage issues on the site. The site is lower than the road, so by raising the site, creating a low area here for drainage, I think that would, and foliage, and we could remediate some of that issue.
Right. And the only residential really to speak of is on this side. There's a house that I actually used to own, which is on the corner of Oakview Highway and 3 Mile Harbor. It was a 2-family house, but it turns out that I didn't even know this, that the ground floor, it's now like a beauty salon. It was a mixed use, and now they have, on the ground floor, this home is commercial, retail, and then the second floor is housing. And then you have the martial arts center, then you have the masonry place and the gas station.
Right.
So, I'm not sure what else I could tell you about it.
Could you talk a little bit about how the parking garage would work beneath the ground there and the depth of groundwater issues? I mean, in general, you know, I think it's a great idea to put the parking below grade if you can do it, but I'm not sure it could be engineered.
We had a boring test done yet, and
Okay.
we came in at almost 13 feet to groundwater. We have the
So
results.
how far down would you have to put a foundation in order to?
Well, the requirement, what did you have for the ceiling height? We're well within the requirements to do that.
We go minimal in ceiling height.
Yeah, it's just in a garage.
Well, what dimension? What is the dimension?
It have to be 10 at least, right?
Yeah, well, that could put you 3 feet above groundwater, and that's not very much. Okay, that just helps.
Allowable, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it may not be practical, though. I mean, I understand it's allowable, but it may not be
Well,
practical.
people won't be parking trucks and things, then they'll just be automobiles.
Yeah, we have a loading dock at the top end here.
And most likely, we would designate the basement spots for the workforce housing residents and for the second floor office co-working people. And that might be, you know, by, you know, a gated code, access, and then the other spots would be for the retail component.
You know where your boring was done on site?
I know exactly where it was, yeah.
Could you show me on that?
It was done, well, can we go to the site plan? It was like,
Yeah,
right,
your
literally,
is here, so.
yeah, it was like right in the center of this.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for the applicant? Lou, this is your application?
Right. Yeah, I looked at your plan, the graphic that you prepared. It's beautiful. I thought it was a, you know, gorgeous project. I also like the idea that that particular property, the way it sits now, the way it looks now, needs to be torn down and renovated. So I'm glad that's happening. Unfortunately, when I looked at the elements of this project, I was very dismayed because there's so many, I mean, you really did get aggressive on a lot of things. You know, there's you overshot on almost everything. I mean, there's 6 apartments versus 4, although on that one, that's the least of my concerns because I kind of feel like you, and, you know, we do need more apartments. I know it causes more traffic if you have more than the allowed number of apartments. So that's one. The superstore size is another one that's not permitted. You went all out on the size there. I think it's overdoing it for that area. The coverage is a problem. There's a question there as to whether or not it is grandfathered, but as it stands now, it's 25% over the limit. That's not, you know, insignificant. And then the parking, you don't have the, you don't meet the setbacks. You only have half of the required parking. That's a big problem for me. Then there's the question about the groundwater. That's another big problem for me with the underground parking lot. And you would, I would think you would, I know you said you're willing to do whatever is necessary, but you would need to put in a wastewater treatment plant based on the flow rates that you have here. So in summary, I love what you're doing. You just did it way too aggressively.
Like I said previously, part of the thought process that went into this when I sat down with Pam, and we spent a lot of time together thinking it through, was like, look, you know, one of the things that the town needs desperately, not just East Hampton, but Southampton, is workforce housing. You know, it's not something that we would really make, you know, money doing. It'd be, we'd make more money just putting up a, you know, a building with office use on the second floor. It would be.
No, I understand
so
that.
we thought, well, this is probably, it's a give and take.
Yeah, I think, you know, to use an analogy that just came to mind, you're tailoring a beautiful suit, but it doesn't fit the person that you're making it for. That particular lot, this is too much for that lot and that area.
But the lot itself, we talked about the density, you know, and visually how it would look. When you drive by that property, it's actually at least 2 to 3 feet below 3 Mile Harbor. So the natural grade there is low. So you can, you know, you take the height of the building, knock 3 feet off of it. So it wouldn't look nearly as bulkish, if you want to call it that, as it might otherwise look if it was at the street level. So that was a consideration that we took into account. And also, you know, just by the design, you know, you can play a lot of, I don't call it tricks, but there's very crafty ways of reducing what is a large building and making it look smaller just by lighting and different colored panels. And I think Pam did a phenomenal job doing that, because, you know, in reality, it looks a lot smaller than it actually will be. Honestly, you know, admittedly so, it would be a big building. But
We've divided it up into smaller portions. I mean, the part that sticks out that misses the setback is really just a drive-through for, you know, picking up groceries undercover, so you're not soaking wet, basically. So,
right, and we thought that would be a tremendous amenity for people to be able to run and get groceries, and then, you know, if a lot of people will go with their partner or whatever to pick up groceries. And we thought about the parking issues, so where do these extra cars go? 3 Mile Harbor there is actually very wide, and, you know, operated nightclub back in 1998 when we opened up, I'm not kidding you, we had 1,000 people coming there on a Saturday night over the course of the night. And there were cars parked up and down 3 Mile Harbor on both sides, you know, for all the way to where, well, where Springs Fireplace meets 3 Mile Harbor, but way past that, down, you know, another quarter mile down the road. So, you know, if you're talking about people waiting in their cars, you know, you could park on 3 Mile Harbor. It's unrestricted on both sides currently. The Hamlet study actually talked about this, I think they called it tertiary parking, where, you know, the town shouldn't be so stuck on these, you know, rigid parking requirements when you have tertiary parking like you do in North Main Street. You have people only park on the street in North Main Street. I mean, you go to, you know, any of the restaurants there, like Serafina or the Grill has like 10 parking spots. Serafina has none. You have IGA, which has maybe 15 parking spots in the back of it. You know, there's no parking. We have a decent amount of parking on site, and we have unlimited parking, you know, at the street level there, and it's unrestricted. So again, this kind of went into the process, because, yeah, we knew we were going to be over, but, you know, it's a wide section of 3 Mile Harbor, and, you know, I think it was something that, you know, we thought would be palatable.
It's also an attempt to attract a tenant that is.
Could you come closer to the mic, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's an attempt to attract a tenant that's able to offer, you know, maybe food shopping at a better price, you know, that sort of tenant, like a larger commercial tenant, rather than, you know, with a very small place, you're more prone to get someone like a Citarella, which, you know, is a lovely market, but not basically affordable for everyday groceries, and it doesn't appeal to people who live here full year. It's great for, you know, some weekend, summer food. So, you know, I think that's the idea about being able to have a space that's large enough to attract this kind of tenant. And that's really important. You know, at 10,000 square feet, you're very iffy as to whether you're going to get someone who's super appealing. And I think the idea is to hope to attract that good store.
I'm done.
Okay. Ian?
You know, I really largely agree with Lou here. Obviously, a lot of thought has gone into the design, the mixed use, the business of it, but this really isn't the type of development that we see in East Hampton, which is not necessarily, you know, make it prohibitive, but I think the fact that so many different parts of the code are sort of triggered as problems here are indicative that this is probably too aggressive by a good bit. Use variances really just aren't granted. Of course, it's your prerogative to go through the formal application and try to go through all of the different permits that you need, and I would, you know, have an open mind to it, but I think it seems like a real long shot if this is the plan that you go forward with. The setbacks on the residential side, and there are a lot of residential side, you know, neighbors to behind the building. We do relax setbacks for parking sometimes, if it's like commercial on commercial or, you know, CI on CI, but not usually if it's a really big, you know, intense use next to residences. So it's a lot harder to get, you know, that variance or
A lot
setback
is
relief.
clear right now, the existing parking lot, if you wanted to blow.
Yeah, I'm familiar. I lived like
Yeah, I
on the
mean,
block.
it's to the property lines of the residences there.
Yep.
There's actually a buffer zone, there is a tree line that buffers, you know, our property from the residential property. You know, so what we'd be doing is actually putting a building up which is, you know, the residential component would be facing the residential component that exists on the south side.
Well, I understand, and I, you know, with every application, this is a preliminary application, so the idea is for you to get feedback from us as to whether it's worth
And
experimenting
I've
with.
told the neighbors, but the one thing I can guarantee you that they would probably all universally agree to is that they would be willing to bend over backwards in agreeing to the variances to get rid of the night.
Yeah, no, I understand. I like I said, I lived within earshot of this place for a long time, so.
Within earshot.
I understand. So don't take what I'm saying as, you know, it's not possible, but I think that you have some real issues to overcome, and that's what this type of application is about, so that you know what you're potentially up against and how much work you'll have to do to get through. The parking, you know, the parking is one of the really limited restrictive parts of our code, and kind of intentionally so. There are times when we will say, you can fit the parking, but because you're next to a big parking lot, we don't want to make you pave that. I don't think that this is that type of situation. You're trying to maximize the building, and we normally don't allow that if you don't have the site to contain the parking and say, oh, well, you can park on 3 Mile Harbor. So I don't think that argument is would work very well in East Hampton, because we really want, you know, cars to be contained on site unless there's a clear ability to contain them, and you're choosing not to for some aesthetic or...
But I think your point is very valid, with the one caveat, is that the existing use already allows, if you will, in which has been going on for many decades, for people not only to park in the lot, but, I mean, I just hosted the Hamptons Film Festival. We had cars up and down 3 Mile Harbor Road in the parking lot. It was at, and we have events like that. And so it's not like this would be something that suddenly pops up and now we're having people parking on 3 Mile Harbor Road. It happens all the time. And, I mean, there's that gas station that's right there. The guy has every day, if you drive by there, you see, he has cars, trucks, everything parked on 3 Mile Harbor. It's actually an eyesore, if you ask me. There's not...
But he's using it the same way you're suggesting you would use it.
Well, he's using it all day. It's not like, he's having like jalopies out on the road. It's not...
like me a jalopy now and then.
I do think that's the difference with your proposal, too, is you would be changing the time of day that people, there's a change. So the argument you're making is one you could certainly make and go through the process. Again, I'm just trying to give you my best initial guidance.
It's also a seasonal parking issue. I mean, I doubt that the winter parking, short of a couple busy weekends, would be near what the summer parking is. So I guess that's a problem we have.
Yeah, it's endemic to the whole area, yeah.
And for what it's worth, the other parking problems you highlight in the neighborhood are real.
Right.
And it's not that that's ideal. It's the situation that there is, but it's not, it's not an easy...
We don't know that.
No, not there, I'm talking about what he's, the one.
Yeah, you put one out a lot of businesses that have limited parking, and it's a problem. I mean, it's not...
Don't have any parking.
It doesn't work seamlessly.
I don't think you're grandfathered parking on a county right-of-way,
No, I'm not saying he is.
or anybody on
Yeah.
that county road.
I'm
I
just
don't
saying
think you have any.
Serafina doesn't have to provide parking because it's been there forever.
Well, the parking on the county road is not specific to us. It's not, anybody could park there.
Yes, anyone.
Well, or
It's-
not,
it's-
if they decide you can't park there.
Right.
Correct.
Well,
Well,
are you finished?
I'm
with
not,
your comments? Yeah.
and the last major issue, I think, is the septic or the health department. I think it's great if you could fit a treatment plan on there. I think that's probably more complicated than any of us know
Yeah, I
right
mean,
now.
we
but-
don't want to go ahead and design.
I understand.
Until we understand exactly what is
What we're designing it
is
for.
palatable for the town for us to do. And again, I don't know where the town, and I'm not sure if the planning board engaged the Hamlet study, but, I spent a lot of time going through that report, read it 20 times, and again, it was the foundation for coming up with this, because we hit the check marks on what they were saying the town needs. And I think, and I'm not putting feathers in our hat, but this property will take what really isn't a town-serving property now, or is limited, to certain, people's use, to making it accessible and an asset to the community, the type of market that we're talking about, where it's not going to be a Cinderella, it's going to be something that, workforce-type people would shop at on a daily basis, and it's conveniently located. It's at the gateway to the Springs, the most densely populated area. It helps to take off, it's like a pressure relief valve for the congestion that's just only getting worse in the North Main District area there. And, we all know where, Stop and Shop is, even though they have a larger parking lot than IGA, I mean, that's a nightmare over there, too. So,
If you would just let us finish our comments, and then we could ask you more questions. I'm glad you're staying there, but I think, I just want Ian to be able to finish his
Last two quick things. The apartments upstairs, I don't know why there's a floor limit. That's probably the least of your problems, and I think it's, thank you for caring about that and considering it. And then the parking garage beneath. We don't see that very often. There's probably good reasons why, but it does seem on the face like it's a good idea. I think if you need 10, I don't know how the numbers work there, but you're going to need some foundation, some ceiling height. It seems like it's going to be very, very tight. And I think you're still so far under the parking requirement that it's tricky. So All in all, I remained open-minded. I think it's very aggressive, and you'd have a tough road to hoe. I think you're trying to fit 10 pounds of potatoes in a 2-pound bag, so to speak. But I get that, this is an initial thing. So I'm open-minded, but those are the outlines of my major concerns, and I think they're major.
Okay, Randy.
I agree with Lou and Ian. I think you need to bring us something that meets our code. And if you can't, if that's not economically viable, you could try to get the code amended, but this is just way over the top. And again, I appreciate the design and the idea. They're great ideas, it's great design, but it's way too much for this site. And I include that in that parking, same issues my colleagues have mentioned. You gotta try to meet our parking requirements. The underground garage idea, which I discussed with another architect at a Montauk site, he said it was way too expensive to support, to have the underground garage and then support the buildings over it. Plus, you've got this groundwater. I think you're going to find that the underground parking is more expensive and involved than you think. The wastewater, a sewage treatment plant would definitely be necessary. And so I think if you bring us something that is not a superstore, that only has 4 units, then we could start talking about it. But this to me is a non-starter. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I don't think I have much different to say. I think it'd be really, I know you say it's a little bit below, but I drive in that corner all the time, and I think this would be really imposing, whether it's lower or not. And parking is going to be huge for you. I mean, that's something that we deal with all the time in our site plan. We don't want to encourage cars on 3 Mile Harbor. It's dangerous. It's, we know what happens down the road at the expensive place, I forget what it's called.
Cinderella.
No, the farm, Swamp Farm.
Round Swamp.
And that's crazy when it's busy, trying to get through there. They're grandfathered in, so they don't have to provide any more parking, but it's a really dangerous area. So I think your big issue is going to be parking here.
Good.
Question I do have, just regarding workforce housing, is that 4 number not is that a steadfast number? There's no ability to go above 4, or is that?
I think that's at least your problems.
I just want to, let me just make my comments, because I think it might address your question.
Yeah.
First, I want to applaud you for thinking big and dreaming big and using the Hamlet study as a guide for trying to provide necessary services and housing, and I think you've really, like you said, ticked all the boxes, and you did it intentionally, and I think that shows a certain civic responsibility, and I want to tip my hat to you for doing that, because I think that's good. It's a good thing. You're a guy that's owned a building for 20 years or more. You get the idea. You get it. You've paid attention to what the town is trying to do. So we have that. But then we are bound by the code as it reads, which is part of the 4 apartment limit. So, whether we think it's a good idea or a bad idea is not relevant to the discussion. We have to structure our comments with respect to the code and site plan requirements. And the site plan requirements, especially for this kind of use, are very specific in terms of parking. So the one problem, and it really sort of pains me to have to say this to you, because I think it was such a imaginative and really creative exercise to do this and really be doing it for the right reasons. But the first thing that every time we go down this, and my colleagues have already said it, but you need so many variances to make this happen, which means you have to get a variance from the way the code is written. There's not one element of this that meets the code. And that is generally a little bit of a red flag for what you're... No, there you go. There you go. But I'm just saying, you know, it's, so that makes me a little sorry for your efforts because, you know, there are so many, you know, the 10,000 square foot coverage limit for superstores, I mean, I don't know if you all remember when that was enacted, but that was a big brouhaha. The town specifically doesn't want big box stores, which is why there's a 10,000 square foot limit. And it's exactly why big stores don't come into this community, because they can't make it financially viable unless they can go bigger than 10,000 square feet. So to use Randy's word, I think in that specific area, that's going to be a non-starter. I can't imagine that variance, you know, being, you getting that variance, although it's not ours to grant. That's the Zoning Board of Appeals. But we're giving you our input because we're trying to give you the best guidance we can in terms of our experience, what we know to be the code, good planning principles, and, you know, these other aspects of living in this community that we can bring to these comments. So I think it would be in your best interests to go back and scale it down a little bit. As Randy's saying, do what you can to meet the code and then see if that works. You know, I think there are certainly aspects of this that are desperately needed. You know, we are desperate for workforce having. Good for you to put 6, but turns out you can't put 6, you can only put 4.
But you could do a variance for more, or you can't?
You can ask for a variance, and that might be one you'd get. You know, that might actually be one you'd get. But without the parking, this is the part of the thing I'm saying, and I know that your experience as a nightclub owner has given you a different concept about how parking works on 3 Mile Harbor Road, but if this is during the day and you have a supermarket and you have other businesses and you have residences, that site is going to become so much more active than it ever has been. And properly so for this kind of development, but that is something that is, you know, you really have to have more parking. You just have to have more parking. The septic is a huge problem for us. As you know, being a member of this community, you know, we now require low nitrogen septic systems, but you're so far over, you know, the permitted design flow. You would have to get a sewage treatment plant, and that isn't on your plans, and that's not nothing. That's a big deal.
It's true, but I'm looking at an air vac system, and it could be a second floor, it can be a basement system. It's a very different concept.
Is it permitted by the health department?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm just saying, you know, these are all considerations, and a sewage treatment plant, the way, I mean, because we've been, you know, we just had an affordable housing, AMG 531, yeah. I always forget the number. But that was like a huge deal, you know, getting the sewage treatment plant and all the rest. So there are just so many elements of this, and it's because it doesn't meet the code that we're like, you know, it looks great, you know, it's a conceptually, I think you've really hit it out of the park, but as a practical matter, I don't know if that was going to work on this site. So I'd ask you to go back, and as most of my colleagues said, but I think Randy said, try to get something that's a little more.
Throw it in the dryer?
Pardon me?
I said throw it in the dryer.
Throw it in the dryer, yeah, on hot. And then, because they're, you know.
I mean, it sounds like parking is probably the most significant concern. Is that?
And wastewater.
And the
You're gonna
coverage,
find
you know.
Yeah, that's a given, but
No, that's.
The parking and the coverage are linked, and I know that,
Well, you reduce the building, you reduce the parking.
exactly, so I think it's not, you know, and the cover, and the 10,000 square feet, that's a big red flag. You know, that is a big, because the town went through real fits and starts to govern that, to have, you know, it's why East Hampton looks as it does. We don't have, you know, I remember the Stern site, that was really what prompted it, you know, when, I don't know, King Collins, somebody wanted to go over there and put in a 20,000 square foot, you know, grocery store, and everybody said, you know, and I think it's still empty. I think that lot is still vacant, but that's, you know, it's a, you know, a community character thing. It's a neighborhood character issue that we're not looking for this massing. Now, of course, it sits in contrast to the very things we need. I understand that, and I recognize the conflict, but we have...
Striking a balance.
Exactly, it's about striking balance, and we have to enforce the code and principles of site plan and planning, and so far, none of this, you know, I'm sorry to tell you, it doesn't meet any of our criteria. So I think you should, you know, I would go back and try to shrink it up a little bit.
There's two other, I think, you know, the standards for a use variance.
Yeah, are very ridiculously high.
Which is what Eric
Yeah.
said for the superstore.
I forgot about
you would
that. I
need-
have it
The
here,
use
here.
variance requires that you show there's no other economically viable use on the site, which you can't do.
You're talking about to go above 10,000 square feet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would
Olympics of.
say
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah, no, it's
I don't
just,
see how that could be successful.
Historically, use variances are very difficult.
it's a very heavy lift.
And at 10,000 or below, we don't need.
Correct.
I have a question about, there is sewage treatment on, just across from the
Springs Fireplace Road?
Spring Fireplace Road, or across from the quarry there, that I could see. I mean, it looks to be on the aerial map.
There's no public,
By Beastrians?
there's no public sewerage in East Hampton town.
It looks to me like there was sewage treatment put in. It may not be
Are you
used.
talking about like the scavenger waste plant? that
It
was
could be.
removed?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
that's very old. Yeah, that's been decommissioned. That's been
So
decommissioned.
there is no sewage treatment at all at the moment?
There's no public sewage treatment at all. Anything that's done has to be installed privately, and it's a, you know, it's a big investment issue, and it's an engineering,
Yes.
you know, feat. So, especially with depth to groundwater in these areas, because that's a big, you know, that needs to be protected.
Ultimately, there's a health department standard you have to satisfy,
Right.
but wouldn't be easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there any future plans for East Hampton, or is it under discussion at all?
The village,
The village?
Oh, for sewage treatment?
it's at least 5 years out.
Well, yes, and I think that there's something, yeah.
Yeah, it's not passed. I know it doesn't have to
It's,
pass.
no, and I think.
Would be in the village.
It would be in the village, and there may be something in the North Main Street area, but I don't know if you could hook up to that. I don't know what the, you know, I don't know enough about the, you know, the distances and whether, you know, how proximate the properties, the contributing properties need to be to the sewage treatment plant for it to be, you know, for efficacy issues, but,
And you know that, that intersection with Oakview Highway, you've lived there a while. I know we've had some fatalities there,
yeah,
there's a motorcycle accident there where the guy died.
yeah.
So one of the other things we haven't talked about that much is
Right.
traffic safety and congestion at that location.
Well, I think that the Hamlet study talked a lot about putting in a traffic circle. And in fact, that
Yeah.
not too long ago, I read about, you know, there's a big push to make that happen.
Right.
Where Springs Fireplace and 3 Mile Harbor meet up.
Right.
Good idea.
That would be tremendous
Yeah,
alleviator of congestion.
right.
So if, you know, if the stars align, and,
Yeah.
look, we're in no rush to do this. You know, we have a viable, you know, as landlords, we have, you know, we're sitting on an income-producing property,
Right.
but, you know, again, we were just kind of like, look, after I read the Hamlet study, and you know what, I was actually here for something, I forget what it was for, but, and when I heard about it, I said, let me look at this, and then I was like, bingo, like, this, maybe this is the time to
Well, good
consider,
for you. It
know,
was the right
developing
motivation. It
property.
was really the right motivation. It's just a little too big, I think.
Well, we'll definitely, you know, throw it in the microwave a little bit. and see.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming in, and, okay.
Thank you.
All right, so, where are we here? We are at, oh, we have a board of review. Goodness gracious me. Okay. So, this board of review is for a request for a building permit on premises located at 19 Bayview Avenue. map 445, block 6, lots 103 through 106, comma, 175 through 178, part of Lower Street, URP 21 in EH3, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-122-6-11.1, and part of 30.2. The undertaking is being the amount of $14,400. These requirements will be subject to review 1 year from the date of this resolution on November 20th, 2020. Anyway, it's for some road improvements. I'd like to move that we accept this recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I'll give Randy that second.
Okay. Okay. All right, so we did that, and now, can I have a motion to accept these?
We have Sperber, don't we?
Yes.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
What? It's not on my, oh, here it is, Sperber site plan, thank you.
I know he's been waiting.
He has been waiting, and that's my application, but is there a, do I not have a?
I don't have it here.
Oh, I do, I have it, here it is, sorry. A little distracted. Okay, so, in the matter, yes, finally, Sperber. In the matter of the application of Sperber Old Fireplace Road Site Plan Special Permit, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-123-3-10.1, for a site plan special permit approval, with the listed conditions of approval. I read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Second.
Thanks for sharing, guys. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? None. So we're carried there. And now, for our minutes. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as...
I make a motion to accept.
Okay, thank you, Lou. Does anyone second that motion?
I'll second it.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and motion to adjourn, second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, we're out of here. Thank you, everyone.